So welcome to the Service Area Annual Budget Workshop. Today is Monday, August 17. It is now 10:06 a.m. I am Alex Georgiadis, Service Area Director. Next to me is Delise Rodriguez, Service Area Administrator. Joining us online, we have Jacob Waddle, General Manager, and also joining us online is Ray Febres, Finance Manager. We do not have any committee members joining us online. In person, we have Joe Silva and Betty Zippin. And so we have 2 out of 3 committee members, so we do have a quorum. So if we could have a motion to call the meeting to order.
So move.
Second,
And let's get started. We have a copy of the budget proposed for 2027. And our biggest increase is the landscape not in contract, going up 23% to 37,000 for next year, from a number of 30,000 this year. No other changes outside of that. Input or questions?
So I'm just curious, it sounds like our existing contract with Exquisite is ending sometime
That
soon.
ends at the end of 2027.
Oh, okay, so this budget is,
Assumes a flat increase, no increase in landscape cost, assuming we retain the contract. That's the assumption here.
gotcha.
Are you getting 100% participation in payments from all the households?
You mean, do we have any delinquencies,
Yes,
basically
we
in
have
reverse? Ray, do we have any input on delinquencies for the service area?
I'll check now. Let me see.
Thank you. Any other questions in the meantime? That's a common question. Everyone wants to know. 30, 60, 90, how far back? Any other input on landscaping costs or? I mean, this service area is pretty straightforward. It's only landscaping essentially.
Okay, so you're just keeping the contractual amount that's been in place since 23.
We're locked in, thankfully.
Okay, the landscaping not in contract, like you said, is,
So there's a plant upgrade, sod, installation, anything outside of base scope.
okay. I see the irrigation went up 1,000, which is open.
Actually, no, it's actually flat. It was 2,000 in 2026 and we keep it flat in 2,000. And the reality is, with this landscaper, they don't give us irrigation bills unless it's a larger item, like a clock or something of that nature. But they don't charge for all the heads and tears in the drip line.
That
Which is
amazes
another
me.
plus. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, these little things, I know we have a lot of complaints, but then there's a plus column as well. So we should think about both sides.
Either you guys must be paying him well for all of the other service areas. And the total expense accrual helps alleviate that, because I don't know how he does it for $2,000. And I know a lot of it is gratis, but that's unbelievable and commendable to Brian.
Yeah, luckily, I mean, part of it, he looks at it big picture, and he understands the whole service area as a whole, so. You know, he understands his negative aspects, so he tries to throw in some positive as well to offset. It's a big picture, and then he looks at the additional work, all the side, so relatively speaking, to go and charge a couple thousand when you're getting so much in extra work. He thinks it's the right thing to do.
Speaking of sod, how much is left?
We just approved the next phase, so we're wrapping up. We finished the front, up to the front fence. The next phase is front fence to the back, around to the driveway, inside of the courtyard. Inside of courtyard will be the final phase. So we're moving on now, doing the back driveway. So we're doing the same loop again, same trajectory we went. Probably, I would say 2 estimates will do that one. So we executed one now, one more will wrap it up. And then I would say we're going into October, maybe, we'll start doing courtyards to be safe. It might be earlier, but.
Courtyard meeting, like.
Oh, inside the backyards of your fence, within the vinyl fence. Side yards and backyards, yep.
Okay.
Completion will be by the end of this calendar year.
Ideally, yeah, budget looks like it's permitting, we should be able to do it all, and the quantities are relatively small, they're not huge yards in the back there, so. The second phase of fence to back to driveway is relatively small, because they're small strips essentially. So that'll not consume a ton, and then the bigger one will be the courtyards inside the fences will be next.
As far as sod goes, so Crimson Muse is right next to mine, and it seemed odd in that some of it got the St. Augustine, some of it remained Georgia, particularly closest to the lakeside sidewalk remained Georgia. And then over the course of this year, a lot of it has simply died.
Okay.
Is there a plan for?
It depends how it falls. It falls within parks. It may be on the agenda. It's mostly parks.
All of it.
And then CDD will start, especially if we're talking down by the water. I know there's a transition point where CDD picks up. It might even be on the north side of the walkway. I think CDD has a portion. Sometimes you even see a line. So I can inquire into that and get sort of a plan to see what we're looking at for the rest of the year. Questions? Anything else, landscaping budget?
Well, looking
Yeah.
forward to this coming year, is it still the case that we're going to put out an RFP to potentially get other?
As of now, I have no intention. I haven't gotten any input on the matter.
Gotcha.
I mean, one item to throw out there, instead of doing the RFP, a big maneuver. Because in theory, what we would be doing is updating the scope, right? I mean, essentially, that's what we're looking at. So between where we are now and a whole new RFP, new scope, if you want, I thought about this, I talked to Brian briefly. Maybe you want somebody to come out once a week, every 2 weeks to come out, do extra weeding or miscellaneous work. So pay for one guy, 1 day per week or additional. That's sort of in between updating our existing scope. So do an amendment for one guy per week or one guy 2 times per month to do catch up.
Is this committee kind of scheduled to discuss scope?
No, not specifically. They asked for the existing scope and potential for RFP. And we provide the information and nothing more than that.
Gotcha. Well, so, and I'm honestly fine without putting out the RFP, but if we are going to discuss scope, then, my recommendation would be is that, it'd be a agenda item for one of our future meetings sooner rather than
Correct.
later.
I mean, in reality though, if we're really thinking to do something like that, we'll want to update this number because we're staying flat.
Well, and that's exact, so, and that kind of, so do we know, like, if nothing about the scope changes, do we know already that Exquisite is going to be charging
Oh, yeah.
approximately the same?
I can,
for-
no.
Right,
Yeah, let me give you the numbers. Right now we're paying about $96 a door based on the base contract. His base monthly fee divided by number of doors. It's about $96 a door. His new service now, not taking into account volume discounts or anything like that. Pest control alone, $70 per month. Irrigation service, $55 per month. This is per door. And then basic home service is $145 for a smaller house. A corner property would probably be about $160, roughly speaking. So around $270 as a base cost, not taking into account volume pricing. So 96 versus 270, if you want to call it retail pricing. So that's where we are now, just to give you an idea. It's an order of magnitude, 3 times.
How did you get those numbers?
Brian's numbers. Brian's numbers.
and to be clear, when you say 270 a month, is that like, so my mom has a house on Potsdam, so if she wanted Exquisite to do her lawn, we would expect about
Ballpark, depending on the size of the house, but roughly.
Right.
And then that's not also taking into account material increases. We're still locked into older prices on material. Most of those went up, say 35% if we do a contract. There's substantial difference in material. Brian's estimates, and if I have another vendor do it, substantial difference. So that would go up as well. So I have material increases about 35%. Like sod, for instance, we have a tremendous amount of sod quantities. So imagine 35% on top of that one number. It's something to think about. General labor, 45,000 hours going up to 65,000 an hour. Irrigation, 65,000 an hour to 85,000 an hour. Rough items. Again, obviously there would be volume discounts, but that's a starting point to give you an idea of where the current market is. He would price the same contract this way. That's where we are.
Gotcha, yeah. So, my only recommendation then would be is that for meetings going forward, we always touch on this and potentially consider, communications to the service area so that everyone kind of understands where things are headed and it's not a surprise.
Yeah, if we start going down that road, I don't wanna scare anyone yet, but if
Yeah,
we do indeed go that way, I mean, that's where you're gonna start hearing out from people is when their numbers go up. I mean,
correct.
generally they're
Absolutely.
satisfied with service. But when the price goes up, then they're gonna have questions.
Right.
Go ahead, Joe, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm just confused with the numbers that you just told us. You said 200 and something a
70
week,
month.
a month. Okay. And those you said are Brian's numbers.
Correct. He gave me those.
So
numbers.
that's not reflected
No,
here.
just as theoretical, if we went to a new contract, pricing the same scope.
Okay, because these numbers say that he's getting $22.27 a week
Correct.
per house
Correct.
or $1,157.80 a year.
Okay.
So
Roughly,
Those are-
existing, and we're locking those in.
apart from one another.
Agreed, and that's the advantage of locking in this contract, and that's why I'm offering, if we want maybe a guy per month, per week, as additional scope, catch up, if we want something, without getting outside of this contract, losing our
That's-
pricing.
Fine, I have no
Yes.
disagreement with that.
Good.
Because when you look at these numbers, this is like a fictitious type document. And it's not meant as any offense, I'm just saying, look at the numbers, read the numbers,
Mhm.
and look at reality.
Yes,
If you look at this, and like I said, I don't know how the guy does it and where he's compiling all of
Sure.
his monies, and I'm not saying, yeah, I think he should get more money. Because your little chart up in the corner showing the increases
Mhm.
every year since 2023, and this year going to $150.54
Mhm.
is one of two things on this page that's increased. If everything stayed the same or had a slight decrease, why did that go up? And let me just add to that, when you go back to the CROA administration fee,
Mhm.
that went up from $56,975 to $59,254. Just refresh our memory. What does that entail?
Jacob, can you jump in on this one?
Yeah, I can speak on that. So the Crow administration fee is a mixed line when it comes to the labor from the full Crow budget. It takes into account a small portion of my time, a small portion of Lauren's time, a significant portion of Ray's time doing the 14 communities of the service areas. And then, of course, 100% of Delisa's time and 100% of Alex's time, as well as a small portion of the front desk time. So with that, when we average those numbers, that's how we got the number for last year. That was reviewed by the board because it was for the first time that we were able to back it with something, as we didn't have the really number why what the admin fee was what it was. So that's why you saw a bit of a change in the fee from 25 to 26. From 26 to 27, it's looking at a 4% increase in line with the 4% increase that Crow is seeing for their labor. So that one is subject completely to whatever that increase line is on the Crow budget. Then it passes, or then if the Crow budget is at a 4%, that admin line is going to be at a 4%. As far as Crow's labor cost.
Okay, so we picked up a portion of your salaries. You guys determine somebody deserves a raise. We foot the bill.
Well, all the service areas fulfilled,
Excuse me?
all the service areas.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Hey,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, hey everyone, this is Charles. I'm sorry I joined late. I want to jump in on this. So the way it's allocated is the service areas procure, they receive a procurement of services that the other areas in Crow do not. So the service areas, so for salaries and things that are allocated to the service areas, those are specifically tied to service areas for those services. So those would not be appropriate to pass on to the regular membership. That's why that fee exists.
Thank you, Charles.
Apologies for being late.
Make a suggestion on the monthly fee. Because I had fun playing with percentages on all of this, and I won't bore you to death with it. You're talking about $150.54, which is a 3.59% increase. Looking at everything else, as I said, and the changes either remaining the same or decreasing. Why don't you come up with an extremely tremendous act on your part, Croa, and showing goodwill to the people who live in Spring Lake, who have endured a monthly increase every year and really not seeing any significant improvement or result as a result of that increase. Take that percentage that I just mentioned and reduce your $150.54 fee and bringing it down to, well, using the percentages, it would come out to $139.6622. Make it $140 straight even, one number, and see what type of goodwill you get. Because I was surprised this past week. Apparently, we're getting a reputation. I ran into a fellow that I haven't seen since I moved to Spring Lake. He was my neighbor directly across the street from me in East Village. And we were catching up, and he looked at me and he said, "Joe, how do you like living in Spring Lake?" I said, "Let me tell you, I love my house." And he stopped me. He says, "But it's the landscaping, isn't it?" He says, "The grief and everything else that you guys go through." I says, "It's interesting that you bring that up. And you don't even live in Spring Lake. He lives in the central part of town." And he says, "No, it's a topic of conversation." Meaning a topic of conversation in town. So it's not the kind of reputation you really want to live with. And I see we've got standing room only. We've got the 3 regulars who should deserve an award for showing up at all of these meetings because everybody else doesn't give a damn. And I know it's 10 o'clock meeting. I know people are working. Some are, some aren't. I tried to recruit people. Monday, 10 o'clock, be there. You bitch and moan to me all the time. Come in and say your piece. Hell no, I'm not going there. I said, "Well, don't bother talking to me about it when you've got a problem and my phone's ringing or you're searching me out to complain." So, it's like half a dozen of one, 6 of the other. You guys are concerned, we're concerned. And 148 other homes don't give a damn. So
So
make it $140 and see what kind of goodwill you get.
Jacob, can I ask you a question? I'm going to put the nuclear option out there. What does it take to dissolve the service area as a whole? What would that require? Because when we're talking about this, at the end of the day, right, it sounds like landscaping is what Spring Lake has. Those are the services you procure. And you are obviously paying for the staffing. You're receiving a different level of service. Candidly, let's be very honest. The service areas that are in the other 13 areas across Celebration have a different level of services. It is, I'm actually curious. So if you wanted to just dissolve the service area and have landscaping on the individual homeowners, Jacob, that is a charter change? Is that a bylaw change? What could be done? Because I hear you loud and clear, but
It would be a charter change.
okay, so a charter change, what, 20% of the membership has to?
No.
Uh,
No,
It's
that
a
would be,
supplemental
Yeah,
declaration.
Gary, I'm asking management. Jacob,
I'd have to look into this more with Charlie on it, but I mean, this would take a larger percent. If it's possible, it would take
Okay.
one of those, probably at least 2/3 and then 2/3 of the 2/3 voting, to make the change, to dissolve it.
Okay, so I mean, that's something that we can entertain. So if when we're talking about lowering it and napkin math and bringing it, I can't do that. It has to come from somewhere, right? That's just the reality. And with your budget, I don't know what more we can do. Landscaping is what it is. We can tighten certain things, but it seems like it's a larger systemic problem. The way that potentially could solve this, just my 2 cents, dissolve the service area, put the landscaping on the individual homeowners, get people to come out and vote on it. And then that's it. Then you don't get an admin fee, and then you don't get landscaping, and then you can get your own landscaping services. I apologize if that sounds overly flippant or cavalier, but that may be the solution for continuing to do this exercise year over year.
It's Gary. The requirement is in the supplemental declaration that we all signed for Spring Lake, both townhouses and the garden homes, when we bought our home. It's not in the charter, it's a supplemental declaration. And I believe it's 2/3 affirmative vote to dissolve the contract.
Of the entire service area, not of
The
the core.
entire service area. Yeah, but read the supplemental declaration and it'll be very specific.
And who made that? Because that's impossible.
No, well, yes and no.
Yes.
Who made it was the lawyers between the developer. And then I won't say TCC accepted it, but Crow went along with it. They didn't approve it. But the developer did that and Crow said, that's fine because the same supplemental declaration is applicable for all 14 service areas. It's the same piece of paper. We're the only ones that have a landscape that's tied to the service area.
Let me just add something from the conversation I had with my former neighbor. And I'm not sure, because I don't know if it was him or somebody else in the household was a representative of Crow in the day. And he looked at me and I mentioned exactly what you just said, Gary, that the percentage is something that's unattainable. And he said, we were involved in what we means, I don't know, with a situation, and we used DocuSign. He said, so it was sent out to every one of I said, what you could do is send it out to all of the owners. They don't have to go to a meeting. They sign on the dotted line. And he says, and that's how we accomplished our goals. So maybe that's another thought.
Noted.
Because I agree, who was that?
Charles
speaking? Charles?
from the board. Yeah.
Oh, good. Thank you, Charles. I agree with you 1,000%. And we've been through this, we've gone through it, and we've gotten nowhere. And this, everything we're talking about, everything we're doing is the classic definition of stupidity. We do the same thing every year, every year, every year, and hope it's going to change. And guess what? It doesn't. The only thing that changes is the money coming out of our pocket. And I don't mind paying money, and I'm happy to do it if I see production, something's happening. But when it doesn't, and I gotta give Brian credit of the people we've had. Oh, slipping twice now with words that are not too appropriate, but in the past. He's the best of what we've had. Is he the best? No. Alex is here during our walk this past week. I looked at Brian, who was in front of my house. And I said, Brian, if you were dealing with a client who was thinking about hiring you to do their landscaping, and they said, we'd like to see a property that you currently work on. I said, would you bring them here? The silence you're hearing in this room is what I heard. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think it gets to a point where, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but sorry, there's really loud clicking on the keyboard. Yeah, look, it gets to that point where, you know, I hear you loud and clear, and you know, I haven't been with y'all on a landscaping walkthrough, but the one I was out there, I know what y'all are dealing with, and I drove through. It looks like it's a little bit better. It doesn't look perfect, but you know, I know we continue to kind of spiral through this level of dissatisfaction over and over. And I do think there are ways to at least kind of have these conversations. And again, like, you know, if it's 2/3, if it's half, it's 90%, I don't know. You know, I'm certainly glad to help facilitate those conversations and figure out what the solution could be. You know, look, again, as I look at your service area, again, the level of services that you receive are very different. So that to me is, you know, certainly grounds for us having a different conversation. So I'm here for whatever I can do to help. I hear you loud and clear. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot of relief we can offer right now in the budget. But, you know, unless management has other thoughts, but we can certainly have kind of this larger future state conversation about, you know, if it's feasible to dissolve or do some other changes.
Be a welcome conversation.
I'll just make a small counterpoint. I feel as though since we reconstituted the committee and since there has been some staff changes within management, that things have improved. Are they at the goal point? No. However, and that's why I like the discussion regarding scope. You know, if I was managing my yard entirely myself, there would still be a contract. And I would still be saying, okay, I want X, Y, and Z done, and the landscaper would be coming back. I will do that for Z amount of dollars. I'm very happy to let CROA's management substantially handle that. And so I would like to see this process continue to play out, realizing, so if there's some confusion about what the goals are and what the scope should be, why is that? And what do we, whether it be the committee or the entirety of Spring Lake, need to be telling you? Here's what would make us happy. Because if I were to get that question, I could answer. Here's a for example. Things have gotten a lot better. When things were kind of bad, maybe over a year ago, the shrubs got trimmed quite a bit better. Here over the past couple of weeks, a lot of, at least in my area, are kind of fuzzy. Scope wise, is it not possible, there are people that know, gardening far better than I do, who could just say, okay, you know what? These buckets are gonna be trimmed once a month, twice a month, once a week, whatever it needs to be. And then the expectation is set for us and you. The expectation is set for the vendor providing it. To me, that's the whole thing. And particularly since our portion of the budget that goes to management is dedicated solely to landscaping, not pressure washing, not painting, not eventual roof replacement, but solely to landscaping. To me, this should be the focus. And it seems doable.
You're right, it's very doable. We have a scope.
Well,
Everything's,
I would say this, I remember some discussions of the scope. And I don't remember huge amounts of detail, but if someone wants to send, why not send out the contract in a blast email to everyone? But I remember things like, hand weaving. And I'm not doubting that used to occur. But, in the year of our Lord, 2026, I don't think we're gonna get that for 90-something dollars a month. I think it's unrealistic to expect that. So I'm willing to look for other solutions. If that means that the plantings need to have this sort of type such that they can go in and spray stuff easily, or it sounds like you're proposing that here's the contract plus we might add on some hand weeding here and there, and here's what it'll cost us, then that's the discussion that I'm open to. But I'm not willing to just completely, give up when things, because of the committee reconstituting, the work that y'all are doing, because of the change in staff and the work that's being done here, things have gotten better. If I myself am managing my little postage stamp, and God forbid I ever pay $270 for the small amount of my thing, which, because it's on a muse, is cut at some imaginary point that I have no idea where it is. I mean, I just can't imagine managing that. But I feel, and I'm not sure, I feel like CROA is still recovering from the management change that occurred 4 or 5 years ago. Was that about right? But things keep getting better. So that is speaking solely for myself, that's the conversation that I want to see this group have. It's doable.
it's not rocket science.
No, it's not. And so if folks will tell the committee and or the residents what it is that we need to do, a reasonable number of us will do it. All of which to say is some of us are on board to keep working for improvement.
That's a true statement and something we've all been striving for. And like you say, we're at different levels of success. But this is, I don't know what the word is. I look at Alex and I feel for him because I think he's doing a hell of a job. And he's banging his head against the wall on one end and on another end because he's out dealing with the vendor. And I've been there when I heard the comments on where we go, what not we, the vendor, what needs to be done, how will it be done, what's the timeline, everything is spelled out and it disappears. I'm gonna give you a perfect example. The walk last Wednesday. Before the walk started, we were sitting outside the pool. And Alex, me, and Brian. And I looked at Brian, I says, before we go on the walk, I'm gonna tell you something. Because if you haven't figured it out yet, I tell it like it is. It's always the truth. I don't make stuff up. You do a good job, I tell you. You do a lousy job, I tell you. And I looked at him and I said, I just had my house power washed. Cost me $400. And I'm telling you in front of a witness that the next time you edge my property, and I've told you 100 times, edge away from a building, not toward a building. And my house is shitted up, excuse the French, with mud and debris. I'm gonna call, have my house power washed, and I'm giving you the bill. I said, come on, smarten up. Lo and behold, exquisite truck goes down the street with, it's because I want to say his name, Alvin. Stops the truck. Brian. Alvin, make sure you have rags in the truck. So next time you go to Mr. Silver's house, if you spray anything on the house, you have the rags to clean it. I said, wait a minute. Use your head. Don't shit up the house. Turn around and walk the other way. I said, you're defeating the whole purpose, but that's what we deal with. We deal with this guy's working like crazy saying, do this, this, and this, and it doesn't happen. It's
Are
that
are
void.
these walks exclusive to the committee members?
You could join. I mean, I can't have the whole service area there, but I mean, you're welcome to join.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is it, how can I find out when they happen?
I'll make sure you'll,
All right.
let you know. I mean, just for clarity, just on that, I mean, that's a behavior thing. We try to, it's several layers. So to teach the field how to correct this, what Brian's angle is you messed up the house, now you're gonna go clean it. So that's the corrective behavior. I know what you're saying. He's supposed to change direction, but if he doesn't and he messes up the house, now you're gonna have to go clean the house. So that's a discouraging sort of tactic he's trying to do. I know what you're saying as well. But the big picture was that of sort of a halfway punishment to the tech or whoever did it. Now go and clean it. We had the same thing with sod installation. Go back, now clean it, you know? So that's the way of learning. It's one thing of saying it, but if there's no repercussions, it's gonna repeat again. So that's what Brian faces.
The other thing is, if it isn't brought to someone's attention, because the resident isn't here or something, then they have to live with it. Or that house has to live with it. And,
Yeah.
you know, we're all very close and we're all kind of connected. So if one house isn't being handled properly, it affects the houses on either side.
Yeah.
So it's not just if I make a comment, you know, something happens.
That applies to.
It has to apply to
Yeah,
everybody,
agreed,
right?
agreed.
Right.
Ray, you want to chip in? You have those delinquencies for us?
Yes, sir. Okay, so as of today, the current amount of owed to the association is gonna be $3,800. From those $3,800, $1,500 is gonna be current. So homeowners that owe the current assessments like within 0 to 30 days, and then we have an additional $1,700 of owners that owe their balance that is past due 90 days. It's only 2 accounts that are past due 90 days. Both accounts were referred to collections. And overall, you have 9 accounts with an open balance as of today. But only 2 of them past due 90 days and are already in
That's a very
collections.
low.
Relatively speaking, it's good.
I want to go back to, we've talked a lot about scope of the contract.
Mhm.
And I think if you look at the scope of the contract, it's very comprehensive. One of the things we deal with is whether or not the scope is being followed. So, you know, you can say you gotta do A, B, and C, but nobody's checking and A, B, and C aren't happening. So we have to look at that, and Alex has made a big difference in terms of the monitoring of whether or not the scope is being followed. But for example, in the scope, it has mulch 2 times a year, which we haven't seen for a while. And we were supposed to have mulch sometime this
July,
summer, which
yeah.
is probably a questionable time of year to put down mulch, since we know it's all gonna get washed away in the next rain. So one, we need to know when that's gonna happen. And when we communicate to everyone when it's going to happen, we have to hold to that. So we can't be sending out an e-blast saying we're gonna get mulch in July. July came and went. And so, and that just causes, you know, the controversy and the comments and the dissatisfaction kind of builds up. You know, so it's, one is important to communicate, but we also have to make sure that when we communicate, we follow through. And that is in the scope, so it's not a matter of the scope of the contract, it's a matter of the actually complying to that.
Agreed.
Well, so to that point, if, for example, and I'm literally just picking something, that I knew that bushes should be trimmed once a month, and that I could report that failure through GoGo, or, you know, whatever the app is, then I would do it. And I think that there are easily enough busybodies in Spring Lake that would be willing to do so as well.
That would be hugely beneficial.
Right, we do have to
The same thing.
communicate that.
Immediately as it happens, we can action it. If it a week later, then it becomes, all right, next week, my guys will get it. But if it's same day, we can action it immediately.
Because the impression that I'm getting is it's entirely on you and the committee during these walks to potentially find stuff. Is that?
Oh, no, I'm out there more often. But again, I'm not
because I
going
see you
in
walking
every
by.
home. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I encourage all residents always to report either town hall at Sierra Mill or GoGo, which will get referred back to us. But something same day actionable, the guys are still on site even, ideal. That's the best way to, it's again, sort of teaching a lesson. I hate to put it that way, but
Yeah.
reinforcing that, because then it's like, oh yeah, I'll get it next time. And then we lose it.
So if we could make this a continuing agenda item as far as scope, because again, generally the folks in Spring Lake don't know what it is that they are really supposed to get to the levy.
Right.
So if we could explore that, and again, if you were to say, hey, if you notice that scope X is not being followed, report on GoGov, that word can be gotten out to the community.
See, you know,
Even if
Good.
they're not even there. They would
Well,
know what's going on if they were here.
Like I said, there, you know, I guarantee you there's enough busybodies. So, and I'm self-reporting as one, but there are enough people that do care that it could be, I think it could be covered.
I don't.
And you can also post at GoGov, not necessarily your address, but if you notice next door
Yeah,
or
not
either
your-
side of you,
anywhere.
you can certainly post that for the people that aren't here, that aren't aware of it. But if we made people more aware of the situation and the areas that need to be remedied, and we have it date stamped.
Mhm.
And you can track the notification and see if it's, you know, if it's still open, you know, a month from now. And
People need to be accountable for what they own here, not just let it go.
correct,
Agreed.
correct. But
Accountable.
but we can't,
This town, and when it started, this town was pristine. Is that anymore? No. Far from it.
but I don't know if that's just Spring Lake, so.
It's pristine, trust me.
Yes, but not, I mean, all over. But we can't, they're grown up, so we can't necessarily train someone or educate someone to be accountable You can't make them want to do that.
If they own property here, there should be a.
Well,
council.
but we can certainly take care of our own and what's around us, what's impacting us.
And a gentle reminder, like you said, just to increase the communication, so it's both ways. We're gonna have to start wrapping up, the meeting. So we have a proposed budget by management. Does committee wish to make any formal recommendation as it pertains to the budget? Otherwise, it'll be presented to the board, which will be proposed to the community on September 26th.
We have my reduction in the monthly fee
Noted.
following the pattern that's been presented.
Noted. Any other recommendations, notes? Online, any other input? All set? Well, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And second?
I second.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time. And
Thank you for all
Yes,
the work you
thanks.
do.
we're getting there. We're trending in the positive direction. Have a great day. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Jacob,
Thanks, everyone.
before you go, could I just mention something to you, nothing to do with landscaping? The traffic light at Boyle Drive and Celebration Boulevard. Is there anything that can be done with your contacts with the county that they get a couple of gallons of paint and paint an arrow in the left lane to go straight, an arrow in the right lane to turn right? You've got a major traffic jam there with people who don't know how to drive and stop in the right lane, and you end up traffic backed up for 2 to 3 miles.
I do remember that going, I thought there was a petition that residents were creating and sending to the county on that a couple of years ago. In our next meeting with the commissioner, I can bring it back up. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I mean, they've been assigning a sheriff spotty. The guy's sitting, I don't even know if he's in the cruiser because you can't see, but the cruiser is just sitting in the median or near the celebration wall sign. And the guy never comes out and does anything. And then the construction on I-4 that is directing traffic onto World Drive, and they make a U-turn to go out. This is like absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
And I
I'll
go,
keep reminding them about that issue at that light.
thank you. That would be a tremendous help for everybody in the town. And I've got one more thing. We've talked about trailers not being allowed on the streets of Celebration. Spring Lake has had more than its share of trailers. Right now, we've got a trailer park on Resolute at the corner of Ponce with a for sale sign on it. So now we are having used trailer sales in Spring Lake. So I think that's 2 violations, because 1, there's no solicitation in Celebration. And 2, the trailer doesn't belong on the street, and it's there 24/7.
I'll ask community standards to get with the county non-compliance control on that. But if you also email the county about it as well, that helps, because we just represent the same as any homeowner would. So the more an issue is brought to the county, the more likely they are to deal with it.
Yeah, I've gotten that with other situations with the trailer when community standards I had called, and they were very receptive and said, we'll take care of it. And then after 2 weeks, nothing happened, and I called again. And the person said, why don't you handle it yourself? Call the sheriff yourself. And I did. And you know what the sheriff told me? You expect me to go to somebody's house and tell him that he can't have the trailer here? So that he can, I'll be polite, so he can tell me to F off?
Yeah, I remember you sharing that. I'll pass it on to them, see what they can do. Again, the more people that reach out, typically the better, but it is up to the sheriff's jurisdiction,
Handy to.
even though it is against our.
Experience.
No, I understand that. I'm just bringing it to your attention because, you guys posted that they're not allowed. So that's the same thing with the landscaping. It has to be monitored and followed through.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Keep smiling.
Yeah.
If